All right. Hi there. I am Susie Ann Ghost, homeschooling mom of five, creator of Flip Flop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses. Live on a hobby farm in Texas. I say farm, and then people are like, oh, a farm? I'm like, no, no, not that kind of farm. Like, we eat our stuff that's on the farm, but we don't have to eat our stuff. So it's good. It's a good setup. I am here to talk to you about therapy. So this is crazy. Whenever I started teaching Spanish, I had no idea that this was going to affect so many lives, from visual processing disorder to autism to communication in general. There's just so much that happens because of the way we learn Spanish, the way I teach Spanish. And so I wanted to share with you how you get this special therapy through words in general, but specifically with the flashcard method. So the therapy that I'm going to present to you has lots of uses. Therapy through words. So there's all kinds of wonderful things happening whenever you learn a foreign language in a certain way. All right, and my company is Flip Flop Spanish and Spanish Geniuses. So it's important to know that learning begins before birth. So even the sounds that the baby hears, those sounds outside the belly does affect some of their not their personality necessarily, but their mood, which as they're being formed, as they're growing, a very anxious environment can cause some health problems. A very happy environment can cause other great things to happen. So you do want to think about the kind of sounds that are coming through if you're pregnant to your baby. And we were blessed to know some of this stuff before we were pregnant with our firstborn. And then later on, you don't really have a choice, right? You're doing things and you're like, oh, this might not be the best noise for this baby to hear. But, you roll with the punches as best you can. There's grace for that. There's grace for that. There's grace for that. I just think it's important to know that your baby comes out already absorbing sounds. They've been doing that for a while before birth. So it begins sooner than you think. There are very few sounds that have meaning yet. There's only the sound of, like, if they might have fear, or the sound of their daddy's voice or the sound of their mama's voice brings safety. But upon birth, there's not a lot that's already there. You're going to be assigning value to every sound, every word, every communication. As you go through their lives with them, you are assigning meaning to their life. I know, no pressure, right? But it's true. Facial expressions going with the sound mean the most. So this is hard for students who have neurodivergent tendencies. They're not able to read facial expressions as well. The cool thing is this learning a second language actually opens those synapses, and then they become able to read facial expressions and body language because those synapses happen. So do it. Any tone from inside the womb. Now they're hearing those tones again, and they're now assigning value to it because they can see things and they can feel things. And so if they're hungry or cold or hot or scared, they're assigning value to the sounds they have been hearing while they're in the womb, and now they're just reinforcing it. The most repetitive words grab meaning first. So the more you repeat a word, the more meaningful it is. And then the needs are the priority. So anything the child needs is what they communicate first. Okay, so why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because when you teach a second language, your brain is already hardwired. The child's brain is already hardwired to receive the information in a certain way. And that certain way is they have an item, they see it, and then somebody tells them what to say when they want it. Or they give it to them and they go, ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. And so you're asking them, do they want ice cream? But you're just saying it, and they're assigning a meaning now. So when you're teaching that second language, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, because they learn their first language super easy because nobody's expecting them to understand you. You're teaching them all the time. You're never frustrated. You're never like, why don't you know this? We already did this. You're like excited when they gain a new word. And so, oh, wow, my kid just added 100 words this month or whatever it is. And so everybody's talking about their toddlers and how their word base is getting really big. If we do that with the second language, then all kinds of good things happen. So it's easy to do, right? You wouldn't expect a kid to know Spanish who doesn't know Spanish. But sometimes we expect a kid to know math who doesn't know math, right? And we expect a kid to know science who doesn't know science. And some history stuff. What do you mean you don't know that? You've been around me. La la la. Why don't you know 1 + 1? I mean, you've seen this. We've counted. And so there's this assumption in every other area. I've read you this book 5,000 times. Why don't you know that? So the other subjects that we have an assumption that they should know stuff. But with foreign language, nobody expects you to know anything. It's so wonderful. And that right there is therapy. That encourages them to then learn other things because that expectation of everything I learn is a benefit. So when we assume no knowledge, this encourages learning. It results in greater praise, right? We're like, wow, you did so good. Look at all the words you know in Espanol or in French or whatever language you're doing. It engages empathy. So when you show, yay, then they know to show, yay. And so it engages that process, that mimicking that all babies do. And then on top of that, it wakes up the synapses that cause the empathy. Communicating in a second language wakes up a part of the brain that simply is not woken up otherwise. Period. Just like music is woken up an area and logic is in another area. This is an area that if it's not needed, just go around me. Just hang out. You don't need me. But if you wake it up, boom, new synapses, and that engages empathy. And so those controls get to go across. It's wonderful. It says begins pleasure to learning. That's supposed to say brings. I don't care. I'm going to leave it. Y'all are okay with that. Brings pleasure to learning. So what I did just then is what I do with my Spanish students. You lower the bar. I'm not expecting excellence. I'm expecting progress. And so that's the beauty of learning a language. We're not expecting perfect grammatical sentences every single time. If that was the bar, if that was the standard, they would never speak. I would never have spoken. You want them to feel like, oh, I'm trying my best. I'm probably going to move forward. But if I don't, it's not the end of the world. Whereas other subjects, that's not the case. So this is therapy. This gives the kid confidence, grace for themselves and others, and it brings pleasure to learning. So it's kind of interesting that I just modeled that. That's what you're doing with language. You're constantly modeling what you want. Actually, we're doing it in all subjects, but that's another seminar. All right, and then it motivates future lessons, and they're willing to take risks to learn because they went, oh, I'm pretty good at this. I wonder what other things I might be good at. And so if they don't know a word, it's okay. They have failure, but it's not the end of the world. So any of that perfectionist kid or, high expectations or low empathy, these kinds of kids need therapy, right? We all need therapy, but these kind of kids specifically need therapy. How can you give that? You give it through experience rather than through talking. And so this is modeling to them. You're taking a risk, you're learning, and that helps them to go then further and take other risks. Who knew, right? Who knew that all these wonderful things are happening when you learn a second language? All right, so we want to make sure they're hands-on as much as possible. If you have the scholar level, you have 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, you have those kids, and they're way high, and they're self-teachers at this point, and they're not needing as much hand-holding. You're just kind of their accountability moderator of their homeschooling now. They still need hands-on lessons. How do we make it a hands-on lesson? Flashcards. Whether or not you use mine or others, flashcards are like the beauty of homeschooling. Look, I just bought this. So I have flashcards all over the place. I just bought a whole nother set for my homeschool. Can you see the beautiful colors? There we go. And so for my own kiddos, I only have 2 left to graduate, and I still break everything down to flashcards for lots of reasons. Let's see why. So the hands-on lessons that you need helps you to focus on doing. So you're not just reading and absorbing, you're doing something. Whenever you accomplish a task, that gives you a little happy endorphin. You're like, oh, yay. And so it's like done. It's like when you check something off a list, same idea. So when you write something on a little flashcard and you go, yay, that little bit of information is now safe. Boom. And then you put it on a little card, a little ring holder. Ooh, yay. And then you have it all set off. Then whenever you learn it and you rip it off the ring holder or you put it in the know it pile, more endorphins. So this focus on doing helps learning to be that much more pleasurable. And what is life if not always learning, right? We're always learning. The challenge of putting the flashcards down, touching them, quizzing themselves one little bit by little bit, know it piles, don't know it piles, that challenge is fun. It's like a little game without the icons and the beeps and the boops. It's all hands-on, screen-free fun. That's the other benefit of flashcards. No screens. Screens are bad. Screens are bad for brain health. You can look it up. Repetitions equal comfort. So sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to repeat it. You do want to repeat it. Repeating it makes you go, yes, I know that. Yes, I totally know that. Oh my gosh, I totally know that. I do this with my Spanish 2 students and my Spanish 3 students and my Spanish 4 students. We go back through their flashcards. Here. We go back through their flashcards from Spanish 1. And they're like, wow, that repetition brings them such peace and comfort. I have accomplished this, which means I can accomplish more. If you're silly, which I hope you're seeing that I'm being a little obnoxious on purpose, this brings memories. Anything that's a little bit out of the box. So anytime you're silly, making silly sentences, that gets like a memory. It's not necessarily a core memory, but it's a memory because you're letting down your guard. We're not silly enough. Why? One more word. Every time you add one more word, oh, you put this in the I know it pile. Oh, I knew that one. One more word equals a celebration. So these tiny little steps, these tiny little processes helps them to then break down all of their learning, all of their tasks, everything they have to do from learning to change the oil to learning to tie their shoes. It breaks it down. So this therapy is helping them to not get overwhelmed, not to look at their whole room and go, I can't ever do it. This says, oh, I can break this down to one thing at a time. And so if I can break the language down to one card at a time, I can break other things down to one item at a time. And then we just celebrate every time we have a new card. Implementation. How do you do it? Well, I already told you flashcards help in every area. So here you have a family of 4 kids. They actually have 5 kids. The 5th one didn't want to be on there, but shh, it's fine. So they're all pointing at the words and they're getting together and they're at the same table at the same time, learning the same stuff at every single level. The synapses are firing in amazing ways. Every time you hit a flashcard, if you're looking at that second language and you're saying it in Spanish, the synapses, you can't even equate what's happening, but because this part of the brain isn't woken up in another area. I know I already told you all that, but repetition. You focus on the item instead of the face. So these kids, look at them, they're all sitting on the same side, they're looking down. Not everybody has a problem with that, right? A lot of us just are happy to look at somebody's eyes, you're happy to look at their face, you're looking at their facial expressions, but a lot of kids get really, really nervous and they don't want to look at your face. They might want to check your face, but they don't want to lock eyes. And especially if you're neurodivergent, you're having a hard time with eye contact. And so you're looking kind of where it's peripheral, but you don't want to look at their eyes. This makes it okay. The person that's teaching you is looking at the card, looking down. You're looking down, and then you can glance up here and there to check for facial expressions. They're usually looking at the word or the card when their mouth is moving, and you can check. So the student is peaceful while they're learning, which is huge for learning anything. And again, that peacefulness in this subject carries over to other subjects. And then word choice. This is what we're about to do. I'm about to show you word choice. Absolute freedom. You can study anything. Anything. Today on Spanish Geniuses, for our bonus speaking session, we did whales. I learned so much about whales. So it was a multitasking. So I'm giving them Spanish sentences about whales, and they're telling me true or false. Then they're describing themselves about whales, and we're guessing which kind of whale they are, all in Spanish. So, and why did we do that? Because one of my students is super excited about whales, and he's learning a lot about whales right now. So that's why we spoke about it. So let's try it. Here we go. So if you've been doing See It and Say It, you're very familiar with this card. This is the I need it, or I need card. So the way we say it is necesito. If you're familiar with Charlotte Mason, the series method, as well as just the method in general to learn a second language or third or fourth, is you want to hear the word before you ever see it. So that's why we have a photo and we're looking at it. I need, necesito, necesito. So check it out. You didn't know you knew that, right? You don't need to know it. So here's necesito. I need, necesito. Let's go to an item. Let's go to, helado. Helado. Necesito helado. You touch it, You say it. Helado. I want to say the ice cream. El helado. I need the ice cream. Necesito el helado. Oh, look at this. We've got a verb here. Limpiar. Limpiar. Necesito el helado. Now we can say I need to clean. Necesito limpiar. Necesito limpiar el helado. I was going to do a bunch more, but I'm just going to stick with 4 right now, I think. So I need, necesito limpiar el helado. And my last one I want to do is a mess. Where's a mess? Here it is. Un lío. Un lío. Now, if you have your inquisitive mind, a mess, un lío, they're going to want to flip it over, and that's okay. They want to check, so let's check it for them. Okay, inquisitive, logical people. Necesito limpiar, limpiar, limpiar. El helado. I need to clean the ice cream. I spilt it, and now I need to clean it. Necesito limpiar el helado. Oh, it's a mess. Necesito limpiar. You can say el lío or un lío. Un lío. El lío, un lío. The mess, a mess. Necesito limpiar un lío. So what I would do with my students now is I would see how many do they remember. Helado. If they know it, yay! Un lío. Yay! Limpiar. Maybe you didn't know that one. We'll put it back in the hand. Maybe you forgot. Necesito limpiar. Necesito limpiar. So now we have 4 words, and we can put together these sentences. We can say, I need the ice cream. Necesito el helado. Necesito un lío. No, necesito un lío. Or necesito limpiar. The cool thing is when you keep on going, so after you have those 4 down and you've got it and you're through lesson 1, we do like 6 words a week on lesson 1, and you've repeated it 3 times before you add more stuff. Now we can say things like this. I like to clean. Me gusta limpiar. Me gusta limpiar. Or we say, no me gusta. So we have all kinds of sentences. How about no me gusta un lío? Oh, sí, me gusta un lío. No me gusta el helado. Oh, no, necesito el helado. So you can see how this therapy happens because you're looking at the different words, you're changing it up, and again, nobody's looking at the face. Everybody's looking at the cards. And you're separating it out. So if this is too much, yo tengo cuántos? Yo tengo cinco? Yeah, I have 5 cards here. If that's too many, that's okay. Break it down. And so suddenly we're just doing 1 at a time. Oh, 6. I had 6. So whatever it is that you are trying to talk about, whatever it is that you're struggling with in your student, learning a second language a lot of times will help with it. My other seminar, if you haven't watched it yet, is all about the how and why. And so I'm going to talk a lot more about why you learn a foreign language over there as well as how. But this is a good idea to start with if your kid struggles with interpersonal communication, memory, confidence, learning in general, learning processing disorders, whether it's dyscalculia, I don't even know, dysgraphia, all the different disses, all that stuff, dyslexia. This will help them because it's firing synapses that they can't fire otherwise. It just doesn't happen without this part of the brain waking up. And then your brain health. So anyhow, watch the other seminar. I'll go into it, but I wanted to offer you the experience of the therapy that happens when, I learned a few words. So now I've talked for a few seconds. Let's see if you remember any of these. I know that was super fast, and typically we touch and we repeat, and we touch and we repeat, but here we go. Un lío. Un lío. Necesito. Necesito. El helado. El helado. So some of you are like, well, I'm super visual and I've got to see the other side. And you can. You can see the other side when you need to. But your kiddos really need to hear it while they see the photo side. That's what's going to help them the most. All right. I hope that therapy help to wake you up of not only how to create a wonderful learning environment for your children in a second language, but also in every subject.